Ahora sí, esto vas a poner en candela. This is about to get real good, you guys. Today is January 12th. We're going to talk about what happened this weekend in Cuba. And you guys, it's official. I'm officially back. Welcome to Mari Sin Censura. Vamos para allá. Now, ever since the capture of Nicolas Maduro by the U.S. military just last week, everybody has been asking me, Mari, what do you think is going to happen in Cuba? What does this mean for Cuba? What do you think will happen inside of the country? And to be honest, it's been kind of hard to answer that question because it seems that every single day it's changing. And yesterday was no exception to that because we got a bombshell from President Trump yesterday. And President Trump yesterday used truth. He didn't tweet, he truthed. He used truth to send out this message, which I woke up to, and it was incredible. Let me put it up on the screen for you guys. Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela, which is very true. We're going to be getting into that in a second. In return, the Cubans provided security services for the last two Venezuelan dictators, but not anymore. Most of those Cubans are dead from last week's USA attack, and Venezuela doesn't need their protection anymore. Venezuela now has the United States of America, the best military by far, to protect them, and protect them we will. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba, which is huge. And this is where it gets good, you guys. This is where it gets real good. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late. Thank you for your attention for this matter, Donald J. Trump. Wow. So this is the first time, it seems, in many years, in many decades, it seems, that a president of the United States is directly threatening Cuba. Now, that was no joke to me. To me, that was a threat. To me, that was a threat from the United States of America. It said, do something in exchange, or you will fail, Cuban regime. And you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want the same fate as Maduro, do you? So do something. Now, we don't know what that something is. We have absolutely no idea what that is, but I would assume because Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State who has a personal vendetta against Cuba, as many of us do in the diaspora. Many of us have the same feelings Marco Rubio has. I think it's going to be something along the lines of have some elections, get some democracy in there, open up your markets, or else. And so that is an incredible move. But actually, it didn't really surprise me because if you have been paying attention to Venezuela and Cuba, you would know that this was going to happen. Like, this was the domino effect that this was inevitable. It was going to happen. Let me explain to you, to many of you maybe that do not know why. So Venezuela and Cuba have had a very beautiful, I would say, relationship for the past arguably 50 years. Now, not to get into the weeds of the history of Fidel Castro trying to subvert Venezuelan politics by arming guerrilla forces within the country in the 1960s. No, but we'll start in the 1990s with Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was a product and a student of Marxism, and he really gravitated toward Fidel Castro. And when Hugo Chavez was finally able to get Venezuela, Fidel Castro became his biggest friend, his confidant, his mentor, his everything. He loved Fidel Castro. And in exchange, Fidel Castro really loved Hugo Chavez. And he really loved Hugo Chavez, not only because he was a Marxist, which, of course, that's always great, but because Venezuela also had oil. And so in exchange for Hugo Chavez's security apparatus, the intelligence apparatus, the entire way you can set up a communist or socialist regime to work in Venezuela, Cuba exchanged oil and money for that security guarantee. And since then, Cubans have been influential, and I can't stress this enough, influential in how Venezuela was run, maintained, and controlled up until literally last week. I mean, Cuban forces were protecting Maduro. That's how close they were. I mean, what is another country's intelligence apparatus doing protecting the president of another country? Am I right? Like that in and of itself is bizarre and should show you how great of friends these two countries were. Now, as a result of Nicolas Maduro getting captured and all of that, of course, now Cuba is stuck without finance, they're stuck without money, and most importantly, they're stuck without oil. And this is where it gets real good. Esto va a poner en candela. Because now what is Cuba going to do? It has no other options. It has a little bit of help from Mexico, a little bit of help from Brazil, but China and Russia have long gone try to help Cuba. They don't ever pay up their debts. And so they're not really in the picture. Really, nobody is in the picture. Not enough to sustain 11 million people on the island. Definitely not enough. So they're put in a hard and a rock place. And that's for sure. Of course, it was due by Marco Rubio. So let's put up Díaz-Canel, who is the current dictator of Cuba today. I would say he's more of a puppet than a dictator, but he's a puppet of the Castro regime. He's a puppet of the Castro apparatus and intelligence. So, but he has a lot to say. So let's put it up on the screen so you guys can see. About 3 or 4 hours after Donald Trump posted that, Díaz-Canel comes out and he does a 3-part tweet series. I guess he doesn't pay for Twitter Plus because he can't use the whole thing, of course. Maybe he can't afford it. But he says, and I'll translate this roughly in English for you guys, the United States of America doesn't have a moral standing in nothing, absolutely nothing, that they want to turn our entire country, including humans, into a business. Today, the history shows that they are angry because of the sovereign decision of our people to choose their political model. First of all, how fucking dare he? But let me save my anger. I'm going to go through this. Then he goes, those who blame the revolution for the economic stress better shut their mouths of shame, because they have been trying to do this to us for 66 years. He's referencing here the US embargo. And then his last and final tweet, which was very interesting to say the least, is he says, Cuba is a free, independent, and sovereign nation. No one can tell us what to do. We are not the aggressors. The aggressors have been the United States for 66 years. 67, Díaz-Canel, 67. And by no means no threat, because we will prepare to defend our country into the last drop of blood. That's what Díaz-Canel said. And obviously, he's cagando. He is shitting in his pants because he knows that the Cuban military is no match for the United States military. And he knows that he is in trouble when it comes to Trump, and especially when it comes to Marco Rubio. And so this is going to get really good. And this is where people have been asking me, Mari, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Well, really, everything is changing so quick, but I can tell you how I think it's going to get played out. Now, what I think is going to happen, what the Trump administration is trying to do is they're trying to force an economic move. They're trying to force economics down the throat of Díaz-Canel. Díaz-Canel knows that he doesn't have many more options to sustain 11 million people, especially when it comes to socialist economic model, right? Centralization of the entire economy and then distribution of those things. Because Cuba runs so much more on exports than it does from imports. And Cuba is already failing in and of itself. You guys, for the past 2 years, 3 years, ever since COVID, Cuba has been declining severely inside the country. We're talking about people that have blackouts for days at a time, no water for months at a time. Like my own family hasn't had running water for over 6 weeks. They have to store all their water in these huge tanks and then ration them out. People who only make $20, $30 a month, if that. And so Cuba has been declining for a very, very long time. And this just puts the ultimate blow on top of that. When Cuba can't ask for oil, for money, for resources from all over the world, it's going to get strangled. And that's what I think is going to happen. And that's, I think, the objective of the Trump administration. The Trump administration doesn't want to do in a direct intervention because, of course, they have to justify it to the American people. The American people have to get on board with it. The American people really don't see that much of an ROI when it comes to Cuba. So they're setting the stage. The Trump administration is setting the stage and putting the ball on Diaz-Canel's court. Now, I don't think Diaz-Canel is going to do much of anything at all. At all. I just don't think Diaz-Canel can do much to begin with because on one hand, he is strangled by the ideology of socialism. He's strangled by it. He can't let up because then he's not a socialist. He's not this great Marxist. He's not this great social planner. And on the other hand, he has tremendous pressure from the Cuban people to change, to do something, to do anything, really. There's no way to accurately poll because there's no freedom of speech. There's no way to accurately give a poll. But from my analysis of traveling through Cuba for a very long time through one end to the other, most people are done. Most people are tired. Most people are just exhausted of the same excuses for over 67 years. The same ones. It's always somebody else's fault. If it's not the Americans, it's the Europeans, and then it's the Soviets for collapsing. And I mean, there's just so many excuses being put on the Cuban people. It's just everyone's fault but their own. And Cubans are not dumb. They're not stupid, and they can see. And even more so now with the internet inside of Cuba. The Cuban internet has only existed for the last 10 years, but it's dramatically changed the psyche of Cubans because they can now see how the world lives. They can see how their primos live in Miami. They can see different information. They can get on Instagram. They can start tweeting. And so many Cubans have been, in their own ways, dissenting against their own government. They want to change. And you can't tell me that if Americans go in tomorrow, the Cuban people won't be like, bienvenidos, bienvenidos, they will absolutely welcome the American people. And I think most of them will. Now, I want to bring this up because I do think it's important. There are significant challenges when it comes to Cuba. Just because they are next to Venezuela and the Caribbean and they speak Spanish doesn't mean they have the same situation at all. And they do not. Venezuela has been a dictatorship for 26 years, while Cuba has been one for 67 years, almost 3 times as much longer than Venezuela. As a result of that, Cuba has been isolated from the world since 1959. And I'm not talking only about economically. I'm talking about socially, culturally. And that presents huge, huge challenges, like I said. Now, Cuba hasn't had an opposition. We have no opposition today in Cuba. Absolutely zero. We have no organizations, no leaders. All of the civil society has pretty much left Cuba to go to the United States. And the little that was left over really left during the pandemic. And because of that, there's nobody really guiding Cuban people into a different way, a different hope, a different opportunity, a different vision of what Cuba could really be. That leads to huge, significant challenges with power vacuums that might happen when it comes to Cuba. Now, we're not talking about just an intervention swoop up like Maduro. We're talking about now severe nation building. And if you look at it through the perspective of Americans, do Americans want to start nation building? I'm not too sure about that. We have PTSD from Iraq and Afghanistan. And I don't know if Americans, with all the problems we have here in the United States, from our affordability crisis to housing, to our healthcare system, to our education system, so many things that need a second look or a third look at. Do Americans want to get involved in another conflict just 90 miles away. And I am not sure about that. Now, politically speaking, there's that challenge too, but there's also another challenge within Cuba. And I think this is much harder to really explain to people. And I think only Cuban and Cuban Americans might understand me, is that because Cuba has been a socialist country for so incredibly long, it hasn't just damaged the buildings, it hasn't just damaged the roads, it hasn't just damaged the warehouses, the factories, the economic sense of the country. It has profoundly changed this. This is the challenge in Cuba, because you have now 3-4 generations, most of the population that has never lived in any other economic system other than socialism. An entire population has no recollection of what it was like before in the capitalist era, under Batista, and before in the 1940s Constitution. They have no recollection of it. And because of that, they have been highly, highly, highly dependent on government, and not just government, but their families abroad, their families in Miami. I mean, a common thing is, me hace falta una recarga, me hace falta comida, me hace falta medicina, me hace falta. That is the slogan of Cubans. I am lacking this, I'm lacking that, I'm lacking internet, I'm lacking this, I'm lacking. And Cubans in the diaspora have really been the backbone of the Cuban economy for the last, arguably, at least 10 years now, sending things to Cuba, sending recargas, which is internet top-ups, sending remesas, which is just straight up money through people like Western Union. And so that mentality has been embedded so much so in the society that it's really hard to really explain that to Americans. That is a huge cultural, significant challenge that I think we're going to have to face, not only as Cubans, Cuban diaspora, but the Americans as well. And by me saying that, by no means am I saying that's everybody in the country. There's a lot of people who are hardworking, that work every single day, that can't rely on family because they don't have much family in the outside. But there is a significant population that is like this. But really, those two things I think are the biggest challenges. Is domestically in the United States, how is the American public going to view this? Is it politically viable? Can they make a case to the United States people that Cuba has to be free, or even a territory of the United States, a lot of people are asking? And also, how can we really change civil society in the country so that Cuba can become a democracy? They can become a flourishing economic model in the Caribbean. They can become prosperous. They can become the Dubai of the Caribbean, because that's all we want. That is all we want. We want to see a Cuba that is democratic, that has free elections, that you can say anything you want. You don't have to be afraid, that can wake up and the people can feel like they're changing their own society. They're contributing to society, that they can buy a car, that they can buy a house, that they can build something and have dreams and have future. And that is what I want for Cuba. And I think everybody in the world wants that for Cuba, except, of course, the people in charge of Cuba today. I don't know what's going to happen in Cuba. I really don't know what the future holds, but this is the closest we have gotten. And I think if it wasn't for Marco Rubio there, we would have never gotten here to begin with, neither in Venezuela or in Cuba. I mean, I don't see any way other than U.S. intervention in some sort of way. I don't see Díaz-Canel letting go of power. I don't know what's going to happen, but I sure damn fucking hope something does. And I just hope we keep going. I'm not sure what's going to happen, like I said, but I can't wait for the future. Anyways, you guys, I'm back. This is Mari Sin Censura. I'm going to be commenting on a lot of different political issues. This is my first time back. I know I got to work on this. I got to work on it. And I hope you guys subscribe below. We're going to get more episodes, do more stuff. We're going to have fun here. But you know why? Because finally, a Latina is in the house. I mean, we have all these manosphere podcasters. Where's the Latino representation? Well, I am here, and I'm a Latina representation. We're going to do it. Esto es, Mari. Esto va a poner Esto sí vas a poner bueno. Esto sí vas a poner bueno. Vas a poner súper en candela porque esto es Mari Sin Censura. This is Mari without no censorship. Oh my God, I'm doing it. I'm back. I'm back, baby. Subscribe below.
Bajito, dice, ¿no?
¿Qué va a pasar con Cuba?
¿Tú estás grabando? ¡Ay! ¡Ay! ¿Estás grabando ahora?
Cuba, Díaz-Canel va a estar en la celda aledaña. Si Díaz-Canel
No vamos para Nueva York si cae.
si Díaz-Canel cae al lado de la celda de Maduro,
Chacho,
yo voy para allá. Y le digo, cójame preso a mí también. Yo soy,
No,
yo
yo
soy algo.
yo
para
pagaría.
meterme ahí, para darle una cantidad de galletas a ese hombre.
Yo a esa gente le pongo hasta visita y todo de la población.
¿No? Y la carta que
Que
le
lo vea
mandamos
desde lejos.
a Maduro.
Oh my gosh. You see, I'm here with a bunch of crazies.